Hi and welcome to the Trading Bell Show. Now, we have set up at the office of the Chair of the Competition Authority of Kenya. Who are they, why do they exist, and what's their mandate? And even some of the milestones they have achieved. This and much more. First, after his profile, let's get into the conversation. Mr. Shaka Kariuki is the Group Chairman of Transcentury PLC. He's the co-CEO of Kuramo Capital Management and Vice Chairman of Gen Africa, Platcorp Holdings and Sterling Capital Limited, all in Kenya. Recently, Shaka was appointed by His Excellency the President of Kenya as the Chairman of the Competition Authority of Kenya. He sits on the boards of directors at BYU Marriott School of Management in the United States of America, Leon Business Solution in Zimbabwe, Sefo in South Africa, and Maku Holdings LLC, an affiliate of Plantations at Hulerus de Congo, the largest agribusiness company in DRC. Shaka holds a BS in Economics, an MBA with an emphasis in finance from Brigham Young University, and a Master's in Government from Harvard University. He's a member of the CFA Institute. Chairman, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to see you.
Always.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us here. Let me start by, first of all, demystifying to Kenyans what CAK exists for, so that at least we can get into the conversation. Please, if you could elaborate.
All right. CAK exists in order to protect the consumers. At the core of it, our key stakeholder is actually the consumer. And I always say, without the consumers, you do not have a market. Okay. So it's extremely important to make sure that the consumer is protected and their rights are protected in order to ensure that we have efficient markets and we have an economy that grows. Of course, in addition to that, for example, we engaged in various activities in terms of, for example, regulating mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah.
We also look into buyer power abuses or price fixing and so forth.
Yeah.
So these are some of the other areas that we look into.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when it comes right down to it, we are all about protecting the consumer. Okay.
Thank you so much for that. And sometimes one of the key questions people would ask is what could go wrong, and I love the fact that you've talked about, price fixing and all those kind of things. But recently I've seen some actions coming out and has hit the headlines where you have penalized some companies in various sectors and all that. And I wanted to ask you, looking at all these particular cases that you've had, could you discuss some of the specific impacts of these actions on consumers and the broader market landscape?
Some of those cases that you mentioned, be it in the retail sector, be it in the steel industry, be it in the insurance industry and so forth, ultimately they have a direct impact on the consumer. Yeah. Because like I said before, it really at the end of the day, it's the consumer that you're trying to protect. Yeah. To ensure that the consumer has access to a variety of goods and services that are competitively priced. So when you have a situation where that is not working, then ultimately the group or the individual that gets hurt, or the stakeholder that gets hurt the most is actually the consumer. Yeah. So in each of these situations where we end up as a CAK making a determination, ultimately we are saving the consumer tremendous amounts of money. Yeah. You take, for example, let's say take for example the insurance industry. Yeah. When you have a situation where the industry, because of their bigger bargaining power, do not infringe on the rights of the commercial rights of the smaller retailers, then you have a challenge. Okay. So if you look at it from 2019, for example, to the present, to 2023 or thereabouts, we have actually saved the consumer or gotten money back to the consumer to the tune of over 2.5 billion. Wow. This is be it garage owners, be it vehicle accessors and so forth. So that, and in the process of doing that, we ensure that the small businesses continue to have sustainability to be successful.
You're right. Yes. And that's pretty healthy because anyway they can be taken up by these big boys.
Not necessarily taken up, but taken advantage of.
Taken advantage of.
Yes, where they are now in a situation where they're not competing on a fair playing field. Okay. Yes. Okay. And that's what we ensure, that regardless of your size, that you have an equitable, fair playing field, so that your business can fail on many aspects, but it's not going to fail because you are, your rights as a small SME were infringed on by the bigger players in the market. Okay. That's what we ensure, fairness.
Okay. Makes sense. I just want to build a case, for example, for our viewers who may want to really understand.
Okay.
And I love the fact that you've talked about fairness. And let's give an example, for example, of these retail chains. For example, we have the big boys that we see out there, and we have the ones Mwananchi has started. What could be a case of unfairness that you look into to ensure that they operate in a similar one? Any example you could give?
Okay, you could have, say, because you mentioned the retail sector, if you have, say, for example, a dominant player in the retail space, and they have suppliers.
Yes.
You could have situations where because you have a key player who has a key infrastructure, they are now in a better position to negotiate or bargain with the suppliers.
Yeah.
And those situations might not necessarily be to the advantage of the supplier. It could be situations where now the supplier is forced to, offer discounts. They could be, the larger player could now transfer the risk to the supplier. There could be all these kinds of situations.
Okay.
And when that happens, ultimately, the supplier will suffer.
Yes.
But ultimately, even after that, the consumer will now suffer.
You're right.
Because if the supplier goes out of business, some of the services or products that were supplying to the bigger player in order for you and I to go out there and consume it or purchase it, now it might no longer be available in the market.
Okay.
So ultimately, it's a cascading effect, where you have the supplier suffering, the consumer suffering, the economy suffering, and ultimately when that happens, then we have a challenge as far as the market is concerned.
All right. I'm sure because some of your work has to touch some of the, let me call them giants, some who could have such advantage. You must get some pushback, and sometimes there's a lot of force maybe towards you as the authority. How has this been happening, and how have you been dealing with this? Has there been any pushback?
There is pushback. There's no question about that.
Okay.
And in my view, pushback is actually very good because it ensures a fair, equitable legal process, and it also ensures that there's checks and balances.
Yeah.
Because just because the competition authority is issuing a determination does not mean that the other party should be in agreement.
Yeah.
What, however, though we make sure we ensure to do is that there's fairness in the process.
Okay.
So when we're going through the process, as far as the investigative process, we ensure that the other party, we are giving them the opportunity to present their case.
Okay.
Sometimes it could be multiple times, even 5 times. They're coming back, we're going back and forth, be it via email, be it via oral communications and so forth, so that they're part of the process. And then ultimately, when the determination is made, then if the accused party is not in agreement, they have the option of going to the competition tribunal, as long as they can do that within 30 days.
Okay.
If they are not satisfied with that outcome, they have the option of going to the High Court, which now makes the final decision. Okay. So pushback, in my view, is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
It ensures that everybody is being treated fairly.
Okay.
And then as CAK, the other thing we also do is as we're going through this process, as a matter of fact, let me digress, as a matter of fact, the guidelines that we use when we are doing the investigations, those are actually published on the website. So everybody is aware. Okay. Once we make a determination, we also publish that on the website so that any other stakeholders out there can actually be able to see what determination we made and what process we went through. Yeah. And also it opens it up for critique so that if they want to critique the CAK, they are also able to do that. But it also ensures that as we go through this process, in the future, for example, if we're in a similar industry that we are investigating, that for the most part, for actually not even the most part, that the result will be transparent and it will also be predictable because the process is the same. Yeah. Yes. Okay. And it's outlined there for the public to actually examine it.
You know, that brings in another key question. I'm a consumer, for example. Do I have a way I could report what I feel is unfair? Because sometimes maybe I'm the one who has observed. Is there a mechanism of which maybe a consumer who probably notices this can report to CAK?
Yes, there is. As a matter of fact, we get complaints on almost every day.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Okay.
And interesting enough, and I don't think you know, a majority of the public is aware of this, that the competition authority exists in order to make sure that their rights, the rights of the consumer, are protected.
Okay.
So we get situations where, you know, the consumer is infringed by, you know, a market participant out there, and maybe, say, for example, they did not get the refund, or whatever the case may be, or it could be an item that was you know, probably expired or whatever the case may be. So they come to us.
Okay.
And we now initiate that case on their behalf with whatever company it may be.
Okay.
And in many situations, for example, they'll get the refund, or they'll get their case rectified. At least they'll get you know, justice.
Okay. What are your key challenges when you're doing this? Because I can imagine, first of all, I see a lot of feedback coming in, as you've said, every single day you get them, and you're dealing with as well people who could bully others as well in a way, tribunals and all those kind of things. And I know it's a whole process. I'm keen to ask you, what challenges really come along to you as an authority?
There are always challenges. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But we have a mandate, and we have to deliver on that mandate.
Yeah.
There's no evil buts about that. That's just that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
So us as an authority is to ensure that we are delivering on the mandate. Okay. That we're ensuring that we have efficient markets. Yeah. You know, that we're ensuring that the consumers are protected. Yeah. That we're ensuring that you know, in the process of having efficient markets, we do not have issues, be it with you know, abuse of buyer power, price fixing, cartel-like behavior, and so forth. Yeah. Ensuring that you know, mergers and acquisitions are done the right way. Okay. We do not have companies there, you know, in a specific sector deciding to join forces so that they can infringe on the rights of or you know, segregate the market for themselves, whatever the case may be. Yeah. You know, so those are the things that we do on a daily basis. You know, are they challenging? Yes. Okay. But we have a mandate to deliver on, and that's what we do every day. Okay.
Chairman, it's just been about a year in the seat, and quite some milestones that we have seen, because we have seen some headlines coming up. But I wanted to ask, what are your focus areas now with the remainder of your term? What are you looking at, hoping that you leave the office working on?
We'll continue doing additional work in areas such as FMCG, you know, fast moving consumer goods area, especially to ensure that companies are not misrepresenting the product and services that they are trying to sell to the consumers. Okay. Because when that happens, then you know, we have a challenge as far as the consumer is concerned. Yeah. Areas such as you know, the new AI space and the digital economy and all that kind of stuff, I think we will continue to ensure that, you know, with these upcoming new sectors of the economy globally, that we are well versed to ensure that the consumer, even in those instances, is well protected. Okay. And even in the past, I think I mentioned areas such as, you know, or sectors such as the insurance and some of these other sectors. Yeah. You know, again, areas that impact the consumer significantly. Okay. We continue to ensure that they are all playing within the Competition Act, so that the key players in the market, or everybody in the market, or market participants, are enjoying the benefits of competition. Because at the end of the day, competition is actually a good thing. Yeah. It's a good thing for the country. It's a good thing for the companies. It's a good thing for the consumer. Because ultimately we all benefit. Okay. And in the process of that, if you have a good competitive environment, you know, you have more businesses, people, individuals willing to start businesses, because they realize they have a fair playing field. Yeah. You know, you have capital, be it domestic or foreign, willing to flow into the market, and that benefits the economy at large. Okay. Because they realize in this country there's competition law, and nobody's rights, as in regards to the, you know, commercial rights, are being infringed upon. Okay. You know, and so that becomes very attractive for market participants, and it leads to market efficiency, and ultimately the economy grows as a result.
Okay. As we come to a close of the conversation, I speak to a lot of, especially the banking sector, CEOs and all that, and a lot happens there. For example, the CBK may wake up and say, this is the lending rate, all those kind of things. But you see banks will send individual messages to their customers saying we have increased the percentages maybe of loans to this, all those kind of things. And sometimes I am curious to ask, maybe on behalf of other customers as well, do you have a role to play sometimes to ensure that they do not exceed certain percentages or overprice their loans, all those kind of things? Do you have a role there?
Banks, for the most part, are regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya.
Okay.
So that, for the most part, has nothing to do with the Competition Authority.
Okay.
Now, having said that, issues such as, for example, ensuring, a number of years ago, for example, you'd go to a bank and you get a loan, and then there's the small print stuff that you're not aware of, Today, as a result of Competition Authority, if you go to a bank and get a loan, all the costs involved in getting that loan, the bank has an obligation to let you know what they are.
Okay.
And that's as a result of the intervention of the Competition Authority.
Okay.
So there are some areas that we get involved in, but the areas that you mentioned, those are not within the the mandate of the Competition Authority. It falls under a different regulatory body.
Okay. Right. Finally, Chair, I want to give you a parting shot. What's your assurance as the Chair to just your stakeholders, the consumers, and even people who want to do business?
I'll probably, let me mention two things.
Yeah.
One, I'd like Kenyans to know that at Competition Authority, we actually have a fantastic team, that works every single day to ensure that their rights are protected, especially the consumers. At CAK, we have a very strong, governance, led by a very good board that oversees the work of the organization. We also have a very good strategy, and I always say, if you have the good governance and you have the strategy and you have the management that can be able to execute on that strategy, then you have a winning formula. And that's what we have at Competition Authority. So that I'm very comfortable with as Chair. In addition to that, I would want the consumers to know that from a Competition Authority standpoint, the consumer is our key stakeholder, and we ensure that the commercial rights of the consumers are not infringed on. On a daily basis, we try and ensure that happens, that the rights of Wajiko are protected. To ensure that each individual, each Kenyan citizen has access to a variety of goods out there, goods and services, as a matter of fact, that are competitively priced, so that they are not being abused from a pricing standpoint. I would also want the businesses to know that even the business community is well protected, that anybody, any company can come to Kenya, set up a business, and they will be ensured that they are playing within a level, fair playing field. So even the businesses are protected. And so from my stand, from where I sit, I always say competition is actually a very good thing. It ensures that, be it the consumer, be it the businesses themselves, that they are well protected, and as a result of that, we now have efficient markets, which now leads to the economy growing, and everybody, all of us, as Kenyan citizens, we all benefit.
Okay. And what's the message to the people who are playing cat and mouse games out there?
My message to all groups, be it companies, be it especially companies, let me put it that way, is, there is a Competition Act of 2010, and that is the mandate that we have to enforce. So I'd encourage everybody, be it large companies, be it small companies, to ensure that when you are transacting, just be aware of the Competition Act, so that, as a country, as an economy, we continue to thrive.
Chairman, I know I said it was the last shot, but you have a strong private backing and you are now in the public sector. How's the margin so far?
The transition is seamless because there are many things that you run on the private sector that are transferable to the public sector, and vice versa, as a matter of fact, from the public sector to the private sector. So there are benefits for both. And for the most part, when it comes right down to it, I always say, regardless of whether you're in the private sector or on the public sector, you know, there's always a mandate. And the key is to deliver on that mandate. And you have to be accountable for those results. Really, that's what it boils down to. And I always ensure that regardless of, you know, be it on the private or be it on the public sector, that you're running the organizations, you know, from a governance standpoint, because that usually solves majority of the problems. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Chair.
Always a pleasure. Thank you kindly.
Thank you so much. There you have it. That's the chair of the Competition Authority of Kenya, and quite optimistic that, listen, we're going to have a level playing ground as long as the authority exists. And thank you so much for your time. I leave you now with the markets.